Welcome everybody to the session with the newest channel controller in Edinburgh this year, Charlotte Moore. If you want to tweet, I just have to tell you, you can tweet during the session and it should be picked up if there are questions you want me to ask. Use hashtag TV controller, so I think you can do that. Now, Danny Cohen, with impeccable timing, left BBC One on a high the year after the Olympics and the Jubilee, and the year that CBBC moved off BBC One and daytime moved into those slots. So big share boost there, I think up 63% in the afternoon. Peak time, Charlotte, down nearly 2% from 22.4% to 24, from 24.1% to 22.4%. So maybe a little bit of a job to do there, but always difficult, I think, taking over a channel that's on a high. And here you are, your first Edinburgh as controller. How's it going and how does it feel?
Well, it's very exciting. It feels like an enormous privilege and quite a responsibility to be the new controller of BBC One. I guess I feel that actually, I've taken over the channel in it's in a really good place. It's very much the nation's favourite channel. We've still got the highest reach and share of any other channel in the country. So, it feels like a real privilege to be doing it. But I want to build on that success. I think that's really what my job over the next few years is to really build on the great place that Danny's left it in. And I guess to build on that success, for me, I think it is all about storytelling. It's about wanting to tell warm-hearted stories across all the genres. I think, to explore and to celebrate the richness and the complexities of life, but I want to do it in new and surprising ways, because I think that's really what the BBC is about. It's about, I think our audiences want us to be distinctive. I think licence fee payers, they pay money for us to entertain them and they want us to give them something that the other commercial channels simply don't give them. And I think that puts a fantastic challenge to all of us, and that's what I suppose I'm here to talk to you all about today, is to say, I really want to feel like we're pioneering. We're going to look at every genre on the channel. I think it's amazing to have the opportunity. I think that's where the privilege comes in this job, that you're looking across, what is a mixed genre channel. It's all about the range and the breadth and the broad audience that I want to be reaching. I want to make sure that BBC One is part of the national conversation. I want to make sure that we're in those living rooms and we're talking to people and they're talking about the programmes we're making. And it feels part of the country, really.
Now, you said warm-hearted. I'm interested that you used that. So a channel of warmth, is that one of the ways which you feel BBC One can be more inclusive?
Yeah, I think, warm-hearted, by that I don't mean that, everything's going to be this nice, lovely, warm bath that we're all going to get into and it's just going to be gorgeous, like a fantastic series of Strictly, which I think is. I think, warmth actually means, for me, if you apply it to the places where we can go to some very dark, difficult and complex places, but I think warm means that we go at those stories with a sense of integrity and humanity. I think, even Luther, I don't think I can ever look at a blender again in the same way. And I'm certainly looking under my bed quite a lot. But I think, Luther has this amazing charisma and he's got this warmth and he's vulnerable. And I think, even when you're in the darkest places, even when you're in a crime thriller, it's got humour and it's got warmth. And I think, if I think about what's coming up, on Sunday, we've got a fantastic drama, Whodunit, in the great classic BBC tradition, with David Threlfall playing a retired cop. And, again, we go to some quite dark places. It's very complex, the story. It's all comes out of a London Victorian house, and just when you think it's all going to be fine, there's a lot of neighbours sort of twitching their curtains. But at the heart of it is this retired cop who cares about somebody that nobody else has noticed has gone missing for 2 years. And it's that sort of storytelling where I think we're really good at it at the BBC, but I want to make sure that we continue to find that, because I think that's what makes us distinctive. It's as much about tone and approach as it is about the stories you're telling.
I actually screamed out loud when I was watching.
Was it the head coming through the seat?
The seat, yeah. Good. Terrible.
But you're on the edge of your seat. That's the thing about that sort of telly, isn't it? You are absolutely connected. I want to make sure that, in drama, but in entertainment and in factual and in comedy, that the audience feels that they are connected. You know, it's about that sort of telly that you feel it's part of your world, and you talk about it the next day. You know, it's the best telly.
So obviously you will have inherited a lot of shows, and we're going to show the show reel, the channel show reel now, which will be shows you've inherited. And I am going to go through every single genre, so we will be talking about the overall strategy for the channel as we go. So just let's take a look at the channel you're inheriting.
What's at the start of?
It's on.
Yowza. Succinctly put.
Can't wait to get out that door.
We want lottery. Woohoo! Go, Poochie, go, Poochie! I'm an artist and I'm sensitive.
Who's my first Muppet?
Father.
Anyone would think the world was ending.
Oh, comparison between the pain you're going through and the pain I'm going through.
He lived in a world where he could get away with anything.
He was content to let the state keep him.
When I was in school, there was this girl. We're getting married.
We've got a little boy. It's all right, Tommy.
You'll have to excuse me, I'm on my rounds.
Welcome to Strictly Come Dancing.
Who will take home the glitter ball trophy?
I can make your dreams and wishes come true. She's desperate.
I was a bit of a swinger myself back in the day.
I made a mistake.
Welcome to Team Jessie.
It's not because you weren't, like, super mega dope.
I'm standing where the equator cuts right across the middle of the continent.
It's a great deal more powerful than we are.
Can we tell the camera to switch off?
I was so happy.
So what are you most proud of at the moment on BBC One?
I think, God, when you watch that, you just think, God, it's the breadth, it's the range, it's the emotions I feel when I watch it. I think knowing that you're the nation's favourite channel, as I say, you know, I think that's an incredibly proud thing to feel part of. I think with it comes that responsibility to make sure you keep it there. I think it is the breadth of what we do. I think it's the ability on BBC One to feel like you are trying to reach such a broad range of people in this country, knowing that you're trying to create a channel which has something for everybody every week of the year. I mean, that's a challenge, and I suppose, you know, I'm very proud of that challenge that we set ourselves. Is that, you know, there's lots to be proud of in all the genres. I mean, it would be too hard to mention all the programmes that have gone out in the last year that I think, you know, as being part of the BBC makes me feel proud of. Certainly what's coming up, I think, you know, gosh, just in the last few weeks, watching the reaction that we had to the Doctor Who Live that we did, that makes you feel, you know, in the lead up to the 50th anniversary, and of course, you know, the next series with Peter Capaldi coming up, it makes you feel very proud that you're taking on this heritage.
And that was your first commission, wasn't it? The Doctor Who Live?
Yeah, I
Being a
think
kind of
the
quick
Andy Murray
responsive.
doc actually was the first thing that I was responsible for. But yes, that came thick and fast afterwards. And it was Ben who said to me, you know, shall we try and make this an event? And I thought, yeah, God, let's do that. And I think knowing how, you know, the ability, you know, in a year when, you know, I don't have the Olympics, you know, we don't have that, we did have Wimbledon, and I could see how when you get everybody talking and when you get everybody feeling like there's a buzz because we've all just watched it go out on telly and you feel that you can pull people together, you know, that felt very exciting to me. And I thought, yeah, I think we can do it. I mean, it was amazing on the night when I went to see it go out. And, of course, most of the people who were coming that night didn't actually know they were turning up for that. They thought they were turning up for some super fans get-together at Elstree. And it was great when I had a chat to Peter Davison about it, and he said, yeah, of course, I remember when it was announced that I was on the 9 o'clock news. And I went, the 9 o'clock news? And, you know, I thought, God, who else? Where else? It's James Bond, and it's Doctor Who, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think knowing that you can pull that together and that you can create an event through television, you know, is something to be incredibly proud of. And we do it, you know, we've got the FA Cup, we've got the World Cup, we've got the Commonwealth Games. I feel like there's lots ahead of us. But I do want to make sure that we create those events on telly as well. You know, Strictly coming up in the autumn. You know, who isn't waiting to see the next lineup of Strictly? And knowing that in the lead up to Christmas, you've got that fantastic Saturday night gift to you every week, which you can watch with the family and that you'll talk about for the next week is great.
So a sense of event is important. Actually, as you mentioned Andy Murray, I happened to be watching, I can't remember which of his matches it was, but I think it was on a Friday, and it started in the middle of the afternoon. And it was just after you'd been appointed. And I was thinking, okay, is she going to keep it on BBC One? But actually, you switched to BBC Two for the news. And then you brought it back on to BBC One. So I was just wondering, suddenly being put in that position for the first time where you've got to make some quick scheduling
Dan and Imogen, they're laughing. We had a fantastic time.
Because Dan knows I would have kept it on BBC One.
We had a good time though, didn't we? Those 2 weeks for me, it was like the most amazing baptism of fire. With me sort of with Dan going, what do you want to do? And me going, Dan, what do you do? But it was actually, well, I seem to remember we'd had the discussion that we didn't want to have to bump the news too often. We didn't want to have to kind of, so we were being very careful about when was the right moment to do it. And we were also being incredibly loyal to Andy Murray because we thought he was going to make it and he was going to get through the quarterfinal, the semi-final. And we thought, you know, we're going to be, let's bide our time. So yeah, I remember that actually. Couldn't remember what day of the week it is, but you do. But.
How competitive are you?
Gosh. God, I think you'd probably have to ask the people around me. I mean, I think I always want to do everything the best that I can, and I'm a real team player, so I really enjoy I think that's why I wanted to go into television, actually, rather than journalism, which I thought about for a bit, because I thought, God, it's great to feel that you're with a team and you're building something together. I think at the BBC, actually, it encourages a real spirit of collaboration, and I really mean that. And I know Danny and Tony are great champions of that, but actually I think I am too. And I think a bit of healthy competition. I mean, I can't pretend I'm not excited to see whether something I really wanted to work has worked and whether, you know, we've managed to win the night on the ratings. I mean, sometimes that's a real drive. But I actually feel at the BBC there's a bigger goal, and it's not just being competitive that makes me want to do it. It literally is, and I may sound worthy, but it comes from, I really mean it. I really love the job that I do, and I love television, and I love telling stories, and I love telling stories in all sorts of different ways, and I'm quite motivated, I think, to engage people in different experiences and different perspectives on the world, and I want them to leave sort of, you know, having inhabited a world they'd never thought of before. And I genuinely think that motivates me more than just winning. It's not about winning television.
So your background's largely factual, and I think everybody in this room was expecting you to be a channel controller, but they all thought you were going to be the controller of BBC Two. And suddenly, there you are, acting on BBC One, and now you are the controller of BBC One. Did you want to do BBC Two? Was that where you thought you were going?
I loved my job as head of documentaries. It's one of the best jobs in television. You know, I've spent 20 years working in documentaries, or probably over 20 years. And, you know, if you want to tell stories, it's a fantastic place to do it. It's pretty uncontrollable when you're making documentaries. You know, you think you know what you're going to make, and you go, and you know, Lorraine, you know, you go out and make it, and suddenly it's not the story you thought it was. It's entirely uncontrollable. I think when Danny asked me to do the acting job, and I'd had a little taste of it when I did a few weeks on daytime, I thought, well, that would be exciting because, you know, I love drama, I love comedy, I'm a huge consumer. And I thought, yeah, it's not that I was bored in my job before, it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying myself, but I thought this would be a fantastic opportunity. And I think I really quite surprised myself, actually, how much I really enjoyed it and how much I felt I could bring to the table. And I really enjoyed working with the genre commissioners that I hadn't worked with before, because obviously the knowledge commissioners, you know, are all my colleagues, and I know them extremely well. But working with Shane and working with Ben and working with Mark and all of their teams.
A different breed.
You know, and sports and news. And I suddenly found, you know, I was really, really engaged in it, and I was having the time of my life. And I thought, yeah, this is a job I really want to do.
So how did it come about that you applied for it? And I mean, obviously you'd done daytime, but you didn't apply for daytime. And usually when you're put in an acting role, it's temporary, isn't it? Did you just feel you didn't want to give up that seat?
Yeah, I just thought I think I should apply. And I realised in the first 2 weeks, I thought, yeah, I think I know what we should be doing with the channel. And actually, I think when you're doing it, you end up beginning to think, I think I was very lucky. I was given the chance to explore, what I wanted BBC One to be. And I started feeling that I really did have a vision for it. And I started talking about it. And now I'm doing it.
So tell us a bit about the vision. I mean, you've talked a little bit, but I'm assuming you had quite an extensive interview process for the job. So
yes,
probably
yeah, they
fresh
put
in
you
your
through
mind.
it at the BBC. When you go into television in the first place, you think, brilliant, ever have to do exams again? And then, and most of television actually is always just about chatting, isn't it? And then you get to the BBC and you do boards and you deliver papers and it is like an exam. But yeah, I think it is about storytelling to me. It's absolutely about using those storytelling skills to go into every genre. I mean, I think if you take entertainment, I think, the skills that I can use and I feel that actually applied, I think, quite well to something like entertainment is to think about how can we look at the journey of a Saturday night entertainment show. If you think about what does really well, some of the traditional forms of Saturday night entertainment, whether it's rags to riches, it's the raw talent that you find, and before we know it, they've turned into a pop star. Whether it's the celebrity on Strictly Come Dancing that you thought you know, and before you know it, you see their utterly human side as they get caught up. And I want to, I suppose, put it out there to all of you that I really want to have a dialogue about how can we tell some of those stories in new ways, but also what other ways can we tell stories to keep your audience on the edge of the seat, to keep them all sort of, I suppose, again, it's that emotional connection I want to feel like we have with the audience, that with an entertainment show, they are, the best entertainment shows make you laugh, they make you cry, they make you go, I wish I was about to win 100 grand, and I want to make it feel very alive like that. So I want to apply that storytelling, in new ways. I think the pioneering bit is extremely important. I think when you run a mainstream channel, it's very easy for everyone to think, and I've certainly, I've been an independent as well, and I think it's very easy to think that what people want as a mainstream channel is more of the same. And I think obviously anyone who's a creative doesn't want to do more of the same, but again, when you're thinking mainstream, it's very easy to think safe. But I really want to, have the courage. And I think, we already are courageous, but I want to encourage everybody to think in this world where there's so much television to watch, in this world where, on-demand television and fragmented audiences because of the kind of plethora of channels you can go and visit, I think it's even more important that we give our audience something distinctive and something different. And I think that puts a great challenge on us all, but it also is incredibly exciting. I mean, how exciting to know that's what we're looking for.
So you've spoken about some of the things you're proud of. What's the area you're worried about?
I don't really see it like that. I think, I want to look under the bonnet, as I say, of every genre, and I want to look about how do we make that really, really good. I mean, when I talk about innovation, if I look at, I suppose part of it as well is trying to reach those audiences that we don't reach with some of our heartland stuff, and I suppose something like Atlantis, which is coming up, is a great example for me of where we're trying to take those boundaries, push those boundaries into new places to reach those audiences which perhaps, we don't always reach as much as we'd like to. And I think Atlantis is this fantastic, it's from the makers of Merlin, and it creates a whole fantasy world of, I've been looking at the first cut and it hasn't got all the CGI in, so I'm trying to imagine it with this amazing state-of-the-art CGI, but it's going to, there'll be minotaurs and two-headed monsters. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. And I think that kind of ambitious risk-taking that's pushing at those boundaries of that audience, the audience that loves Doctor Who, the audience that loves Merlin, I want to make sure that we are bringing new programmes for them too.
Okay, well, there's so much I want to ask you.
I know, there's so much to talk about.
I know. But let's...
You keep asking me really general questions, and I'm like, proud. Anyway, yes.
So let's move on and talk about some specifics. We'll move on to drama, and I think we've got a clip, or some clips.
And this is... Step here. Near the fireplace, where 5 generations of this family has stood. The highest point is under the table, because the table's never been moved. And no one's ever trodden on it under there. This is our floor. This is our farm. And I will not let it go.
I loved The Village. I thought Peter Moffat, to have that sort of epic ambition to create, a series that would last through the time of the lifetime of one man, Burt Middleton, and to tell that from the time he was a boy. And actually, of course, that's sort of telling the story, I think, of all of us. It's the story of everybody in Britain, and it's taking you back to a time which is actually really hard to remember, because I think we look at World War I through the footage of the battlefields, and we forget what it was like for people back at home. It's got stellar casting in it with John Sim and Maxine Peake, and it's got a fantastic writer. I mean, thinking about that makes me think about how important casting is and how important attracting the best talent to those pieces. And it also makes me think about the range that we do. So The Village, I think, does have that heartwarming storytelling in it, even though it's, it's heart-wrenching at times. But I think the fact that you can attract that cast to something so epic and ambitious. We've got, actually something I can announce, we've got Dustin Hoffman and Judi Dench.
Wow.
How good is that? I'm really proud of that.
Pretty good lineup.
Who is going to do, in our new adaptation, Richard Curtis's adaptation of East Trot, coming up, the Roald Dahl classic. And again, I think, I don't think anyone but the BBC could get Judi Dench and Dustin Hoffman to play those parts. That feels very special.
And obviously you don't have, a background in drama, in entertainment, in comedy, in, some of these genres that are critically important to BBC One. How are you going to deal with those?
I don't think you did either, Lorraine.
Well,
No, I don't mean that.
I did, because of the fact that I'd run children's, which was a multi-genre department, so I'd done comedy and drama in children's.
I only say that, I suppose, that actually I didn't say it. It sounded a bit cheeky, didn't it? But
all right.
I say that, I suppose, thinking, the funny thing is in these jobs is I don't think anyone would be able to have the breadth of everything.
No.
And I think, I think actually when you... storytelling, I think, is storytelling, and I think it applies to those different genres. And of course, it's not all about me. I work with this amazing team. I've got the genre commissioners and the controllers, who are absolutely experts in their field. But I'm finding, that dialogue that we have is not so dissimilar to the dialogue I have when I'm talking about an observational documentary series. And I suppose, I think the breadth that I've done already, I would say, if you think about, I commissioned Bake Off, The Choir, Barely Legal Drivers, The Call Centre, Welcome to Lagos. That range of trying to make some quite difficult subjects popular is something that I feel in the last few years I have explored and experimented, and I think have had success with. And I guess it gives me the confidence to feel that I can work in these other genres and that I can have a vision for it. I'm really interested. I consume a lot of drama and comedy. And entertainment, and I think anyone who loves television, is consumed by all the medium, and it's just great to have the chance to kind of, explore that.
So what's missing in drama at the moment then? What would you like to see that's not there? Because as you say, there is a big range.
And I think, that range we should always continue to be pushing further at. I think the range is great, and I think, I look at The Village, and we've got the next series of The Village coming up, but we've also got Truckers, which I think there's a clip of you're going to see, which shows you that totally other side of drama. It's contemporary, it's haulage drivers, truckers from the Banks of England haulage company up in Nottingham. And it tells the wonderful story of, what's actually quite a difficult life for this group of men and a woman. They've got Ashley Walters and Steve Tompkinson in it. And it tells the story of, they're conflicted, their two lives actually. One of them is on the road, and the other one, they've got a life on the road, which is entirely separate from their life at home. And it's very joyous, it's very redemptive, it's very funny, it's got sort of tones of the Full Monty in it. And I think more of that range, to feel that we are trying to make drama which is for all our different audiences. If I think about Atlantas and Truckers, and then you've got The Village, and you are appealing there to a very broad sense. But, I don't think we should see them in these sections, that's for that person and that's for that person. Ben and I have been talking about, I'd like to do sort of more love stories. And again, I don't mean that in some sort of soppy, I think there's ways to move into those areas. And I'd like to see, we've also, Ben and I've been talking with some of the other execs about more women. I think it would be great to have I think, actually it comes from having a greater breadth of writers, sort of more diversity from where the stories come from. And I think more women as protagonists would be great as well. But, I say that and then I go, oh, well, yeah, but there's Call the Midwife, and then there's Last Tango in Halifax, and then there's The Paradise. And, actually the breadth, it's there, but it's important that we go on looking for new stories and new ways of telling stories.
Well, let's have a little look at EastEnders, which is perhaps more of a problematic area at the moment.
She's not a tiny baby anymore. I want her to stay with me for a night.
Nope.
Why?
I don't like being manipulated.
Do you practice? Do you practice being such a hypocrite?
What about the child? Think about the child's welfare!
No, Michael, all I think about is Scarlett. Get her out. Get her out, get her out, get her out, Mike, Scarlett.
So do you actually watch EastEnders,
Yes.
or did
Yeah, I
you
remember
watch
that
it?
scene, yeah.
And where do you think it's going wrong at the moment? Because obviously EastEnders is critically, the health of EastEnders is critically important for the health of BBC One. And all the soaps kind of go through cycles. And at the moment, EastEnders seems to be on a slight downward curve, losing viewers, losing share. What do you think the problem is with it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think EastEnders is incredibly important for the schedules. I think it's one of the most important part of the channel. 4 nights a week, the show goes out, and we're in our audience's homes. We're also actually, I've been looking at the research for EastEnders, and people come to EastEnders. You don't come to the BBC for anything else, and that's incredibly important to me because that is the reach. That is reaching audiences that we don't. And I think, EastEnders is really, really important. And I'm really excited that we've got Dominic Treadwell-Collins started, I think it was the week before last, and I had a great chat with him about what we're going to do with the show. And I think both of us, and indeed Ben and Kate Harwood, have the real ambition to make sure that EastEnders, Dominic says, I want to make it the best drama on television. And I'm like, yes, let's do that. But I also think I want to make sure that it does become that water cooler TV, that it certainly, has a tradition of being. And I want to build on that. And I think that is about, EastEnders has that amazing mix, doesn't it, of, gritty, real-life stories that reflect what our audience is, what we're all living through. It is a mirror onto all of our lives. And it deals with all sorts of, it's a fantastic way of dealing with the taboos that we find difficult to talk about, kind of very current issues that perhaps we don't talk about. But I also think it's about humour. I think EastEnders has that rich mix of it can be very funny at times. And we've got a fantastic autumn coming up. I think all soaps have their peaks and troughs, as you say, but I look at the autumn storylines coming up, and we've got Ronnie Mitchell coming back, we've got Peggy, we've got David Wicks, the Phil Mitchell turf war is really coming together in the autumn. And then Dominic's got the most amazing head for stories, actually. Chatting to him the other night, it's like Albert Square is in his DNA. He's worked on it for years and he knows it so well. It's almost like he's been brought up with all these characters. And we're into I think we're nearly 30 years old. That's a big time for EastEnders. And Dominic's got these great storylines. It's not going to be a disappointing Christmas and New Year. I think Dominic's going to take it into a really fantastic era.
And of course, one of the difficult things you have to do is decide what not to commission as well as what to commission. So The White Queen, was that, I'm assuming, you had a part in deciding not to do a second series?
It's funny, when I was looking at that clip at the beginning, I saw that man on the tightrope, and I was thinking, God, this is a bit of a weird clip to show at the beginning of a session. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a bit what it's like, isn't it? Thinking, keep going, which decision, which way should I go, a yes or a no? I think The White Queen, it's a really innovative, risk-taking show to have commissioned for BBC One, and we've got to take those risks. It didn't reach the audiences that I would have wanted it to. It found a very loyal, steady audience. And it was a great ambition to bring a period to BBC One and a storytelling that we haven't had on the channel for a while. But if we don't take those risks, and if we don't innovate, and if we don't jump off those cliffs with something we really believe in, that will be a really awful thing for the BBC. And I want to go on taking those risks, and that is in drama, but it's across the board.
And will you carry on commissioning at such volume? Because one of the brave things about The White Queen was it was 10 episodes.
No, I think volume is, you've always got to look at the story you want to tell and go, what volume should we tell it at? I think, Atlantis is a long series, and so is Musketeers that's coming out, which is another series that I'm really excited about. And I think, you have to look at something and work out what's the best number of episodes for the story. I don't think you should sort of go, let's add a 10-parter and 12-part. It didn't work that way. I think you've got to start with the idea. But yes, I'll definitely be looking at, it's what's right for the story we want to tell.
Okay, let's have a look at comedy now. I think we've got a clip that you've chosen.
Time at school, and I hope for it to continue for many years to come. Also, it was lovely to meet the hilarious new French teacher, Susan.
Sarah.
And just to say, she has very, very, very beautiful hair.
Get that a lot.
Yours sincerely, this is Keith Church, Deputy Head of Science.
And all that was in the letter, was it?
Yes, it was, so there's no need for you to read it. It won't take up any more of your time. Au revoir.
Vous parlez français? No, you don't, do you?
There's something about his weird hair, isn't it, in that? I find it's just, I think Big School's great. I think, again, to have that cast, to have David Williams, Catherine Tate, Philip Leinster and Francis, and, it's great. And David has, put so much commitment and passion into it. I think it's, and again, I think it is a very warm show, at the heart of it. And I think it's great to, to try not being in a family home with comedy, to not have that family, kind of kitchen-based sitcom, but to actually be in the staff room, a place which all of us, have wondered what goes on behind those doors. And it's very clever, actually, in the whole series, and I've watched them all, and you rarely see the pupils, actually. They're wonderfully it is very much about the love affair, or the kind of strange frisson, I'm not even sure I'd call it an affair, between Sarah and Mr. Church.
But comedy is notoriously difficult to get right on any channel, particularly on BBC One, where the bar is so high in terms of audience expectations. And of course, you're lucky enough to have BBC Two that you can plunder. So, what shows have you got your eye on BBC Two? I mean, you said.
Don't know what you're getting at.
Well, you commissioned Bake Off. That's doing very well.
Yeah, I'm very proud of Bake Off. I think it's doing a fantastic job
well
on
enough
BBC Two. Look, I think, at the BBC there's always been discussions and, a history of shows travelling between the channels, and, that's something that Danny and all of us as channel controllers are always discussing. But, Bake Off's only just started on BBC Two. Ep 1 went out this week. I commissioned it. I'm incredibly proud of it. It's doing a really good job on BBC Two.
But if we we will move on to factual entertainment. We might not have time to play all the clips, but you look at something like The Apprentice. BBC One has been clamouring for another fact-ent show, and it still doesn't have one. And BBC Two has got Bake Off, and it's got Top Gear, and it's got The Choir. And I know you want to be nice and collaborative and all the rest of it, but do you want to be that to the detriment of BBC One?
Saying you don't believe me.
No, well, do you want to be it to the detriment of BBC One? Because sometimes you just got to be a fighter for your channel.
I think, The Apprentice is a great example of where entertainment and factual meet in a really happy way, where you sort of feel it is entertaining, but through it, there's got this sort of public service story behind it, where there really is a very real business proposition at stake for those contestants. And I do want to make sure that we bring, I do want to make sure that Factual on BBC One has a much more entertaining offering, and that it brings an audience to it in the first place, rather than Factual feeling on BBC One that it's the bit that ticks the box of the public service worthiness. I absolutely do want to carry on that tradition. But, it's not about taking other things from other channels that's the way you're going to kind of recreate things. It's absolutely about having the courage to kind of commit to that on BBC One as well. And I also think, that doesn't have to, factual entertainment or factual television that is entertaining, doesn't only have to come in formatted terms. I mean, I think, Nick and Margaret's We All Pay Your Benefits was a very good example of something that brought a big audience to a very difficult subject in a way that really felt like must-see television. I think Pound Wars that we did, which was an observational documentary looking at the kind of war on the street for the pound in our pocket, where Pound was a 99p store. Poundland were fighting over who was going to get the most money and win the high street. And, you know, the characters are fantastic. It was great storytelling. So I think there's all sorts of ways that I want to make sure that Factual becomes more entertaining, and probably steals, actually, in a way that The Apprentice does. I think steals some of the clothes of drama, actually.
But how are you going to grow this new Apprentice? Because, you know, the great thing about BBC Two is things can start small and they can grow. What tends to happen on BBC One is if they start small, they just go down. It's not a fair law, but it is the law that
yeah, we've got to find big, bold ideas that grab the curiosity and the interest and the love of the nation. I mean, you know, I think that is also in taking some of those territories that do really well. For instance, in natural history, I think, you know, traditionally we've got fantastic landmark series there that we traditionally do and will continue to do. But we've got a new face that we're bringing to the channel in Lucy Cook, who's doing a series about animal conversation, about communication and how do animals communicate with each other. And she's got a real wit and humour. And she's been travelling the world exploring and sort of talking to these scientists about, you know, do dolphins gossip? Do monkeys kind of talk to each other? Do they all know what they're all called? You know, there are other ways of being. It's not all about if you're saying The Apprentice is another competitive format and we'll be doing more of that. That's another way to make entertaining television. Of course, I'll be looking for other ways to do that. But I think I want to look at Factual and go, how do I make it more entertaining? Not in a derivative way, but in a way that genuinely feels pioneering.
Well, let's move on to entertainment. We haven't got time to go through every single genre, but obviously entertainment is another difficult area for BBC One to get right. And we've just had 3 new shows launched, I think. I Love My Country, that puppet game show, and a new lottery format, Break the Safe. I think we've got a clip of I Love My Country coming up.
Frank, is it Lisbon? Yeah. It is Lisbon. Put that Yorkshire pudding on the map where Lisbon is, and remember, laugh really loud if he gets it wrong. It's so funny. Okay? On you go.
Somewhere around there.
So the critics were really harsh on I Love My Country. I think The Guardian called it idiot TV at its worst. What's your view of it?
Well, I think Gabby Logan's great. I think she did a really good job, and I think, you know, Frank Skinner and Mickey were great in it. Again, you know, I think when a show doesn't get the audiences you want it to, you know, it's always quite difficult for us all watching it to feel that, you know, we wanted it to do better. But, you know, it's still halfway through the run. It's got a few more weeks to go through. I think I see it as another example of the places where we've got to take risks. And I want to continue having that creative renewal. You know, Saturday night is so important to the BBC. I think it's so crucial that we feel like the door is open to entertainment producers to come and talk to us about that and have that dialogue about how we do find the next turn. But the next turn of the wheel, you know, it's not... I think we all know in the industry-wide, it's one of the hardest things to find. And to land that golden goose, you know, is really, really difficult. But if you don't keep trying, if you don't keep experimenting in different areas, you know, with that will come the risk of not getting the figures you want. But it's important to keep trying. And I'd say that about the puppet game show as well. You know, it's great to be working with Henson and to give that a go.
But with I Love My Country, if I am correct, that's what I've read, you only had I Love My Country because you got the voice, so you had to take I Love My Country. You didn't have any choice about it. Do you think that was the right deal to do?
I don't know that, actually. I don't know if it was I know it's made by Talpa, but I don't think it was quite as tied up as you're suggesting. I think it's very successful in other countries, and I think everybody felt that they, you know, wanted to try it here. But I'm afraid I wouldn't know that, actually, having only been in the job for a few weeks. I don't have the answer to...
All right, so moving on to The Voice, which is, you know, contentious. It was just brought up at the BBC session, you know, with Tony Hall. Did you feel BBC One was right to do The Voice?
I love The Voice. I mean, The Voice launched as one of the biggest entertainment launches on a Saturday night for the BBC. you know, I think, you know, having been behind the launch of Strictly, you know, shows take time to bed in, they take time to develop. You don't get those, you know, amazing figures that we got with Strictly last year, which I hope we're going to get again this year. You know, you don't get it the first time. And I think you've really got to believe in a show, and I do. I think The Voice has got, you know, it's fantastic, that idea that you're going to, you know, when the coaches are all there judging to begin with on the purity of that voice, and that from then on, it's you know, after the blinds, it's really the story of, can you take that voice and can those coaches mentor and help those people become pop stars? And then we're putting it out to the audience to vote who you're going to give that chance to. You know, that's got a great, that for me is great narrative storytelling. And you know, I think, yes, it's, you know, I'm very excited about the next series.
Without Jessie J and will.i.am, though, are you not a bit nervous?
I'm very excited. I'm afraid I'm not able to announce the next lineup of judges at the moment, but I'm not worried about it. In fact, I'm very excited about it.
So that's a bit tantalising.
You know, it's tantalising,
Can't you tell us
isn't it?
one of them?
No, I just can't. I can't announce things. It's got to be so good, wouldn't it? But I can't. But it's very exciting, and I feel, you know, we've got a journey to go on with The Voice, and I'm certainly on that journey with them. I think it's a great format.
So I'm going to show your previews now. What's coming up in 13-14, the next.
This is just the beginning. You have a great destiny.
You won't beat me. The tyranny of youth will not beat me. Bad spray tans, which they guarantee will make you look fantastic for winning your ex-wife back again, they won't beat me. No Botox injections as performed by the bloody Stevie Wonder Clinic in Sheffield, similarly sold as an effective way of making you look like $1 million for your heartfelt reconciliation. They won't beat me either. None will defeat me. Eke homo!
It's good, isn't it? That chipmunk, right? That series is the most fantastic series about small creatures that, you know, that live in this world that is our world, but is a world that is so terrifying and action-packed that you can't imagine it. And the idea behind the series is to follow these animals from the chipmunk to a rhinoceros beetle to an elephant shrew. And you really look at the world from their point of view. And it takes you through using some really clever camera techniques in the way that it's filmed. But you imagine, you know, when we feel it's raining, to that rhinoceros beetle, you know, it's meteorites.
Yeah.
When there's a gust of wind, it's a blooming tornado for him. You know, for the elephant shrew, when there's a herd of wildebeest stampeding, its whole house is completely ruined. It's got to start again. It's actually bringing drama, I think, to natural history in a very kind of head-on way. Stephen Fry is going to do the narration for it. And I think it's a real example of where I sort of go, you know, let's push those boundaries. Let's use some of those techniques of storytelling. So, you know, use drama and dramatic techniques and apply it to natural history. And I think humour, actually, in both of those, and I think we don't get nearly enough humour. You know, obviously, Shane's pretty good at humour, and our comedy, I think, is fantastic. But I think I like to feel like we bring more of that range of tone.
So I'm not wanting to break in on you, but it's just that I'm aware that we only have limited time, and for some reason we had a shorter session than some of the other controller sessions. So a lot of people in the audience...
I thought we'd have less to talk about.
I know, as if.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the audience are programme makers, and they all want to know what your priorities are so they can get their teams developing great shows for you. So why don't you tell us what your priorities are? What are you really looking for now?
And I suppose, actually, I was trying to sort of do that through the... You know, when I say humour, I do want people to come to me with ideas that, and I think in the factual space actually particularly that would have humour, but I also think actually in drama it'd be great to have drama that, you know, a bit, you know, we do it, but I love the idea of it making you, when I say heartwarming, I also think that makes you really feel like you're chuckling at home. I mean, that we've got, I've just commissioned as well, one of my first commissions is a series with Danny Brocklehurst called Ordinary Lies, and it's set in a car salesman outfit, and it's the story of all of these people who all lead very ordinary lives, but in that wonderful way that Danny Brocklehurst does, these ordinary lies that he tells that start off as small lies, escalate, and their world spin out of control. And it's quite a dark humour, actually, because they seriously spin out of control. But trying to make sure that in that sort of, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that it's not all about one tone, actually, in drama. Sometimes it is about where the dark and the humorous all go hand in hand, and you're on a roller coaster. And I'd like to feel like we were ambitious with the range. If you're saying what am I looking for, in drama it would be I'd like to find new voices, new territories, new areas. It'd be trying to find new writers, both on and off screen. I want to find new faces. I think in comedy, I think we're doing, Shane's actually having a very exciting time trying to pull the very best talent in and giving them the freedom actually to really think about what they want to do as well. So I'd really encourage both new talent and established talent to really feel like it's an open door. And that we really want to, we are looking for the next big hit. It's almost impossible to find just like that. You don't know that you've got it until you've got it. But I think, comedy is still very important. Looking for the next Saturday night entertainment.
Do you think you're populist enough? Have you got that populist gene?
I think I have, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, again, if you're a storyteller, I think it is about trying to tell stories that reach a big audience. I mean, I think if you look at what I've commissioned, I want to reach a big audience with what I make. And I think I do have that.
And you've talked about new voices. Do you think there's enough diversity on BBC One in the most general sense?
I think, I think the BBC would do quite a good job of diversity, but, it's not enough. I think industry-wise, I'd say we all know we need to do much more. And I think that's on screen and off screen. And I think actually those things go hand in hand. I think we need to have more diverse voices working behind the scenes and also in order to bring those stories in a very authentic, real way. In Factual, I'd like to feel like we could nurture a more diverse talent on screen. I think we've got The One Show, we've got Watchdog, we've got magazine shows, which are fantastic places to bring people through. It's not about ticking boxes and doing it in a clumsy way. You've got to do it in a really real way. And I'm very committed to doing that.
And how do you think you're going to cope with all the public scrutiny you're going to have on BBC One, where the press will write about you, and some of the things won't be very nice, trust me. They won't.
Well, I think, that goes with the job, doesn't it? I think along with the privilege and the fantastic excitement of the job that I want to do, I think one has to accept that with that goes the responsibility. That's part of working with the BBC. And I also think, we're making programmes with licence fee payers' money. I think that scrutiny's right. I mean, I'm not saying I want the nasty headlines, but I think, it's right that we should feel that we have to answer to our audience.
Did you accept less money than Danny was paid because of the public scrutiny?
Because I was scared of the scrutiny. Sorry.
Was it?
Well, it's a matter of public record what I'm paid. I'm paid £240.
Don't you think you should have got paid the same as him?
I think,
Danny.
If you'd like to go and discuss with them. I think, look, I'm paid a very good salary for the job that I do, and I'm very happy to be doing the job I am for what I'm paid.
And obviously, in one way, it's going to be great having Danny running TV because he really understands BBC One. But do you think he's going to be breathing down your neck?
Well, I think, I have to say, in those first few weeks, to know that Danny's along the corridor, is a great thing. I have a great relationship with Danny, and I love the fact we can have a very good dialogue about things. But I've also realised that Danny's a very busy man. He's running all of television, and that includes all of in-house production, and, it's a massive job. So, I think I've got a great relationship with the other controllers. I've got a great relationship with Danny, and it feels like... but I also feel I'm being really entrusted to take the channel where I want to take it, and I feel very supported, actually, in doing that.
OK, so I've got time for a couple of questions from the floor. One at the front here. Middle.
Hi there, I'm Conor McGregor, and I just first, before I get to my question, I just want to congratulate Charlotte on taking on BBC One Control. I know it's a very big job, and it's the most publicised job in British television, so I just want to congratulate you on that. I went back and forth on my one question, but I want to go back to EastEnders briefly, because I'm a big fan of EastEnders, and I wish the show a lot of success. And I think a lot of fans that I've spoken to about the show believe that the show went wrong because of the baby swap storyline. A lot of people felt the reaction of that on Ofcom and a lot of complaints that the show sort of stepped back a bit and tried to pre-watershed, I guess, and not take enough risks. Do you feel with the appointment of Dominic that it's going to go back to that, and do you think you can make it a bit more risque and chasing headlines again and trying to get that whole, you know, we're doing these big bombastic storylines, and with the 30th anniversary coming up, it'd be important for the show to be on.
I think Dominic's ambition, Conor, is just fantastic. I don't doubt for a minute that he's going to make it the best drama on television, and he's got this massive appetite and ambition, and he's a fantastic storyteller. Just listening to him, he's insatiable. I mean, he's just like, and another thing I've been thinking, and another thing. So no, I don't have any doubts that it's going to be risk-averse, or it's not going to be brave with the places that we take it. I think, you know, he knows EastEnders.
One more question. Jonathan, Charlotte, I think, at the back there.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Charlotte. Yes, Jonathan, Charlotte. I represent talent, as you know, Charlotte. And one of the big questions we have when approached by the BBC, or in fact any broadcast, with the BBC under the telescope so often from the press, when you do new programmes, the big question for us when we put talent in is the show going to work? If the show doesn't work, it can kill the talent's career as much as it can progress the talent's career. So when you're making the decision after the first series of a new programme, whether it be drama or entertainment, and you're under the telescope, and some people are saying it's wonderful. By the way, Lorraine, I Love My Country. There are also some great reviews of that show as well, because they have a talent in it. But how do you, internally, the BBC, balance talent, also a public opinion, press opinion, being against the show, versus your opinion it will work at a given time, and also the responsibility of being taxpayers' money? How do you balance that decision-making process, and whether you spend more money on a second run of that show?
Well, I think, you know, it's not about listening to the critics. I mean, if that was the case, you know, I mean, I think, you know, the critics is one opinion, or, you know, it's a few opinions. But it is about listening to the audience. I mean, I think we have to be driven by listening to the audience, and it's they who judge whether something is a success or not. Now, not everything, you know, can get the highest ratings ever. You have to judge who's it reaching. Does it do a job for the channel? Is it reaching? When I talk about broad audience, it's really important that some shows reach the audiences that are, you know, that are beyond our heartland. But, you know, I think with talent, and whether it's on screen, whether it's off-screen writers, I mean, we all take that risk when we go into something, but I absolutely intend to support the talent. I mean, we all go into it together, and we all know that we want to do it, and we'll, you know, that's you know, I see it as we're all going into it, and we'll support each other through it. But, you know, you can't, you don't recommission something if you feel it's not working for your audience. You make that judgment, you do the best that you can to make it the best show that you can, and then you have to listen to what your audience is saying. And trust your instinct, I think.